The wind howls across the crumbling ramparts like a mourner's wail, carrying the acrid bite of smoke from burning thatch and flesh. You press against the sun-baked stone, your palms slick with dust and sweat, heart pounding in rhythm with the distant thunder of hooves. Below, the steppe stretches endless, a sea of dust churned by 10,000 riders' silhouettes against the dying sun, their banners snapping like whips, bows drawn, arrows blotting the sky in black clouds. The air thickens with the cries of the wounded, sharp and fleeting, swallowed by the roar of catapults hurling tree trunks soaked in river mud. One by one, they climb. Sisters, daughters, wives of the fallen Shah's court veils torn, jewels discarded in the scramble. Their eyes, wide with a fire fiercer than fear, meet yours for a breath. No words now. The first leaps, skirts billowing like broken wings, a shadow vanishing into the haze. Then another. A chorus of gasps rises, then silence, broken only by the crack of Mongol drums. 60,000 souls. They whisper in the chronicles that survive. Royal blood, pure as the Oxus waters once were. Not for glory, not for gods. To deny the machine below its prize. But the horsemen do not falter. They circle tighter, a noose of iron and intent. Flames lick the gates, and the river diverted by their cursed hands begins to rise, muddy fingers clawing at the foundations. What comes next will echo through centuries, a scar on the earth that time cannot heal. Hold fast. The fall is just beginning. What you're about to hear involves the shadow of sexual enslavement and mass death in the grip of conquest. These events, drawn from ancient chronicles, are raw and unrelenting. If the weight pulls too heavy, step away, honor demands it. For those who remain, we trace not the blade's edge, but the forge that shaped it. A system of terror, calculated and cold, that turned men into engines of erasure. This is the story of Gurganj, where defiance met the storm, and the world tilted toward darkness. Imagine a land where rivers birthed empires, where silk caravans whispered secrets from China to the Caspian, and cities gleamed like jewels in the desert's crown. That spring, in the year the frost clung late to the steppes, it all ignited over a single betrayal. A caravan of Mongol traders, 500 strong, crossed the border into Otrar, bearing gifts for peace. The governor there, Inalchuq, a man with eyes like chipped obsidian, saw not partners, but prey. He seized their goods, slaughtered the men, and sent their heads rolling in the dust. Word raced back to the great Khan, Temujin, now Genghis, the ocean of wisdom. His envoys followed, 3 riders under white banners of truce. Inalchuq melted silver into their eyes and ears, a mockery of mercy. Genghis did not rage in silence. He summoned his council on the wind-swept plains of Mongolia, where eagles wheeled overhead and the air tasted of mare's milk and iron resolve. They have struck the face of heaven, he declared, voice steady as the eternal blue sky. No mere revenge would suffice. This was a fracture in the code of the steppe, the yasa, his unbreakable law of safe passage and swift justice. The Khwarezm Empire, sprawling from the Aral Sea to the Hindu Kush, ruled by Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad, a king bloated with tribute, his court a nest of scheming viziers, had invited the storm. Genghis mobilized 150,000 warriors, dividing them like arrows from a quiver. His sons, Jochi, the eldest, shadowed by doubt, Chagatai, fierce as a winter gale, Ogedei, the steady hand, would lead the van. This wasn't madness born of bloodlust. This was a machine, oiled by generations of tribal feuds and steppe survival. Genghis, once a boy orphaned in the wilds, had forged it from betrayal's fire. Captured as a youth, enslaved by his own kin, he learned the bite of chains. Escaping, he wed Borte, his anchor, only to see her stolen by raiders return months later, heavy with child. Jochi, that son, carried the whisper of shame, a crack in the Khan's armor. Yet Genghis bound his family with iron oaths, turning wounds into weapons. The Mongols rode not as barbarians, but as a bureaucracy of conquest. Scouts mapping rivers, engineers damming floods, shamans invoking Tengri's wrath. Psychological barbs flew ahead, heads impaled on pikes, tales of cities swallowed whole. Surrender meant tribute, resistance, oblivion. The Shah scattered his forces like chaff, fleeing west as Otrar burned for 5 months. Its governor boiled in silver for his hubris. Bukhara fell next, its mosques stripped, scholars spared only to scribe the Khan's glory. Samarkand, jewel of the Silk Road, yielded after a week's terror, its walls echoing with the groans of the dying. But Gurganj, the beating heart, perched on the Oxus Delta like a fortress of mud and defiance, would test the machine's gears. Here, the suns converged, their tents a ring of felt and fury around a city of 200,000 souls. The air hummed with the low chant of Mongol siege songs, drums beating time to the rhythm of empire's advance. Yet beneath the thunder lay a quieter forge, Genghis's own scars. As a boy, he watched his father poisoned at a feast, left to scavenge with his mother and siblings, wolves at their heels, betrayal by the Tatars, who spat on his clan's name. Each slight hardened him, teaching that mercy was a luxury for the weak. His yasa demanded loyalty absolute, punishment collective. One arrow snaps, a sheaf pierces, he taught his sons. Ogedei, broad-shouldered and calm, absorbed it deepest. Born in the shadow of Jochi's questioned blood, he proved his place through deeds, not birthright. Chagatai spat fire. Jochi brooded like gathering clouds. Together, they embodied the Khan's vision. Unity through conquest, erasure of threats, and then the spark at Gurganj. Jochi, approaching from the frozen north, urged caution. His allotted lands bordered here, a prize to rule, not raise. His brothers, sweeping from the south, saw only embers to stamp out. Messengers galloped to Genghis, 200 miles east, their dispute a hairline fracture in the machine. He dispatched Ogedei as arbiter, his third son riding through blizzards with 1,000 elite. His standard a black falcon on white felt. End it, the Khan commanded, but leave the bones for the wind to scatter. Ogedei arrived under a blood moon, the river's murmur mocking the brothers' bickering. The siege tightened. But that fracture would widen, unseen, in the days to come. The delta air hangs heavy that winter, thick with the salt tang of the Oxus and the faint rot of fish traps abandoned in haste. Gurganj sprawls like a living labyrinth, mud brick walls 20 feet high, veined with canals that feed emerald fields of millet and date palms heavy with fruit. Minarets pierce the haze, calling the faithful to prayer 5 times a day, their voices weaving through markets alive with the clink of silver dinars and the spice scent of saffron from distant Persia. Children dart between stalls, laughing as they chase hoopoe birds, while elders sip sherbet in shaded courtyards, debating the Shah's folly. This is a city of weavers and astronomers, where the stars map not just nights, but fates. In a modest home near the western gate, Zara kneads dough by lamplight, her fingers dusted with flour like fallen stars. At 19, she is the quiet bloom of Gurganj, dark hair braided with jasmine, eyes the color of river silt, quick with a healer's touch. Daughter of a silk merchant lost to the Shah's wars, she tends her mother's loom now, threading patterns of phoenixes rising from ash. Mornings, she slips to the hammam, steam curling like secrets, sharing whispers with her cousin Layla about suitors and the caravans that might carry them away. Evenings bring tales from her brother Timur, a archer on the walls, his calloused hands gesturing battles he'll never fight. The horsemen are ghosts, he jokes, but his laugh rings hollow. Zara dreams of a life beyond the delta of Baghdad's libraries where words outlive stone. She hums an old lullaby, the one her father sang, about rivers that remember. Word spreads like fever. The steppe riders encircle, a noose of dust and distant fire. Horns blare from the towers, and the governor, a grizzled veteran named Kutlug, rallies the guard. 40,000 defenders muster, spearmen and lamellar, camel archers with quivers of horn-tipped arrows. Women join too, boiling pitch in cauldrons, their saris stained with soot. Timur kisses Zara's forehead that dawn, his armor ill-fitting, borrowed from a dead uncle. Hold the home fires, he murmurs. She nods, throat tight, watching him vanish into the throng. The gates groan shut, iron bars slamming like a final prayer. Ogedei's camp sprawls across the floodplains, a city of yurts stitched from the hides of 1,000 beasts. He stands atop a rise, fur cloak billowing, scanning the walls through eyes narrowed against the glare. At 30, he carries his father's weight without the scars broad, as a bear, voice a low rumble that quiets quarrels. Jochi paces nearby, his face a storm cloud, arguing for parley. Father bids us take the land whole, not ash. Chagatai snorts, sharpening his sword on a whetstone that sings like a cicada. Weakness invites the blade. Ogedei raises a hand, silencing them. Scouts report, no stones for catapults, groves stripped bare. Ingenious, these river folk. He orders mulberry trunks felled, soaked in the Oxus till they swell like bloated corpses, then lashed to trebuchets. The first volley arcs at dusk, trunks crashing against the parapets with the crack of thunder. Dust blooms, screams follow. Zara feels it in her bones, the ground trembling, the air splitting. She gathers the women of her quarter, barricading doors with looms and benches. Outside, the catapults groan again, relentless as the tide. Temur returns at midnight, bloodied but unbowed, whispering of arrows that blot the sun. They demand surrender, he says, gulping water from a clay jug. Kutlug refuses. Zara binds his wounds with linen strips, her hands steady, though her pulse races. In the lamplight, she sees the fear in his eyes, mirrored in her own. Dawn brings the demand. White banners from the steppe, a herald shouting in broken Turkic, "Yield your lives or lose your souls." Kutlug's reply is naphtha arrows, fire raining on the Mongol pickets. The horsemen recoil, but only for a breath. Ogedei nods to his engineers. Dikes breach upstream, the Oxus diverted in a roar of mud and fury. Waters rise, lapping at the foundations, turning streets to canals of despair. The confrontation builds like a fever dream. For weeks, the walls hold defenders hurling stones, boiling oil scalding the first climbers. Mongol dead pile like cordwood, their comrades dragging them back under cover of arrow storms. Ogedei paces his tent, maps unrolled on felt rugs, plotting the flood's slow creep. Jochi urges restraint, visions of future pastures dancing in his mind. Chagatai drills the tumens, his curses carried on the wind. Zara, trapped in the rising mire, prays with her neighbors. The minaret's call drowned by the deluge. Temur fights on, his quiver emptying, each shot a defiance. Then, the crack. A section of wall buckles under a ram of hardened wood, breached like a heart. The machine surges forward, house to house, blade to blade. In the shadow of the breach, Zara faces the end. Temur drags her toward the inner citadel, but the streets choke with the fleeing. A rider bursts through faceless underlamellar, sword arcing. Temur shoves her aside, the blade biting deep. He falls without a sound, eyes locking on hers one last time. "Run!" he mouths. She stumbles away, the world narrowing to the ramparts above. The women gather there, a tide of silken sorrow, hands clasped in silent vow. No chains, no shame, the jump is mercy, stolen from the storm. Zara hesitates, wind tearing at her veil, the river below a churning grave. Then she steps, weightless, into the void. The machine claims its due, but not her spirit. Not yet. Word trickles back to the camps like blood from a fresh wound. The walls are taken, but the city fights like a cornered beast. Ogedei, sleeves rolled to the elbows, wades through the muck himself, directing sappers to widen the flood. Every street a river, he commands, voice cutting the din. Artisans, smiths, jewelers, weavers are herded to the rear, bound for Mongolia's looms. The young and the hale, divided among the tumens as spoils. The rest? The Khan's yasa is clear. Resistance earns erasure. Jochi watches from a rise, face ashen, the fracture deepening. He had urged terms, a future for these delta fields under his banner. Now, pyres light the night, smoke veiling the stars. Chagatai laughs, a bark in the dark, toasting with kumis from a horn cup. Father will sing of this. But Ogedei sees the cost. 5,000 lost. The machine grinding slower than in Bukhara's fall. The system hums on, indifferent. Messengers fan out to other fronts, Tolui, the youngest son, raising Herat in the south. Pyramids of skulls marking his path. Reports flow like the diverted Oxus. Villages emptied, canals clogged with the unburied. Incentives bind the warriors, shares of loot, ranks for the bold. A Tumen commander earns 100 slaves for a breached gate, a scout 10 for a hidden ford. Back in the steppes, Genghis tallies it all scribes, noting heads, herds, tribute in a ledger of conquest. This isn't chaos. It's accounting, precise as a merchant's scale. Zara's kin, scattered in the flood's wake, become numbers. One weaver for Ogedei's tent, a girl for Jochi's hearth. Timur's body floats nameless in the current, a quiet protest. Shift north to Jochi's vantage. He rides the perimeter at dawn, mist cloaking the drowned fields, the scent of wet earth mingling with char. A captured potter, wrists bound, kneels before him. "Mercy, Lord," the man pleads, voice cracking. Jochi hesitates, visions of his own questioned blood, the whispers that dog him. He waves the guards off, granting the man his tools and freedom. A small rebellion, unseen by his brothers, but the machine corrects. Chagatai's riders spot it, dragging the potter back, heads rolling anyway. Jochi turns away, bile rising, the steppe's vastness mocking his isolation. In the city, a breather amid the storm, a child, thumb in mouth, shares bread with a stray dog on a rooftop, oblivious to the flames licking below. Beauty in the breach, fleeting as a prayer. Escalation ripples outward. From Gurganj's ruin, the sun's pivot. Jochi claims the northern reaches, his reluctance seeding future rifts. Ogedei pushes west, eyes on the Caspian, where the Shah's ghost fleet rots. The machinery adapts engineers, charting new dams, shamans divining favorable winds. Numbers swell in human measure, whole clans vanishing into the horizon, their songs silenced. One moment lingers. A merchant's widow, veiled in black, barters her jewels for a dagger, turning it not on foes, but herself, denying the horde its claim. Ogedei hears the tale from a scout, pauses over his evening stew of mutton and roots. "Let it spread," he mutters. Fear as ally, sharper than steel. But that wasn't the worst. The flood had only begun to recede when the true deluge broke. Time slows as the citadel crumbles, the Oxus reclaiming its bed in sluggish gurgles. Ogedei stands amid the shallows, waters lapping his boots, the air a stew of mud and despair. 5 months of siege have etched lines on his face, deeper than the scars from Siberian hunts. The walls, once proud sentinels, now jagged teeth gnawed by rams and flame. Horns blare the final assault, 20,000 charging. Shields locked, arrows singing overhead. Defenders swarm the breach, a desperate knot of steel and fury. Kutlug at their fore, banner tattered, roaring defiance. Blades clash in a symphony of sparks, the mud sucking at feet like greedy hands. A Mongol archer falls, trampled. A Khwarezmian spearman crumples, gurgling. Zara's absence haunts the heights, her leap a spark in the collective fire. The women ascend in waves, daughters of nobles, weavers' girls, all one, now in resolve. The ramparts throng with them, a sea of white under veils, hands linked against the gale. Below, the horde presses, their cries a guttural tide. For the Khan, for the eternal sky. Flames devour the outer wards, acrid smoke stinging eyes, curling into lungs like accusations. One by one, they choose. A push into emptiness, bodies arcing graceful, vanishing in splashes that merge with the river's moan. 60,000. The scribes would etch virgins of the royal bloodlines, pure threads in the Shah's frayed tapestry. Not royal in gold, but in the quiet dignity of their refusal. The machine hungers for breaking, for the wail of the taken, the forge of new bloodlines under felt tents. They deny it, a chorus of silences louder than war. Ogedei climbs the breach himself, sword drawn, the weight of command a yoke. Jochi flanks left, his strikes measured, haunted. Chagatai right, a whirlwind of cuts. The citadel gate splinters under a ram's fury, iron screeching like damned souls. Inside, the last stand. Kutlug's guard, 2,000 strong, form a hedge of pikes. They charge, a suicide wave crashing against the Mongol line. Bodies pile, slick with red, the mud turning to slurry. Ogedei parries a thrust, drives his blade home clean, efficient. No glory here, only the grind. The governor falls last, back to a fountain's edge, sword shattering on Ogedei's guard. "Tengri judges you," Kutlug spits. Ogedei's reply is swift, the head tumbling into the pool, ripples spreading like whispers of what follows. The crack comes not in steel, but spirit. As the women leap, their shadows dance across the waters, a ballet of loss that pierces even the Khan's sons. Jochi halts mid-stride, staring upward, the machine stuttering in his chest. "What have we wrought?" He breathes, voice lost in the din. Chagatai presses on, but his laugh dies unspoken. Ogedei, ever the fulcrum, orders the tally. enslave the spared, burn the rest. Pyres rise, a forest of fire, smoke blotting the dawn. The system holds, but the fracture gleams a doubt sown in fertile ground, destined to bloom in the years ahead. Gurganj drowns not in water, but in the echo of choices denied. The river runs red, carrying secrets to the Aral's depths. Ogedei rides from the smoldering husk 3 days later, his tumen trailing like a wounded serpent. Gurganj lies gutted canals, clogged with debris. Minarets toppled like felled giants, the air a pall of ash that chokes the throat. The Khan receives the report in his eastern camp, nodding once over a map stained with ink and blood. The delta is ours, he says, but his eyes, those hawk's eyes, flick to Jochi's silence. The eldest son returns north, carving his ulus from the bones, his reluctance a seed of schism that will split the empire a decade hence. Chagatai withdraws east, claiming Transoxiana's ruins, his ferocity unchecked. Ogedei, marked for greatness, pushes the machine westward, the Caspian gates swinging wide. Genghis, sated for now, turns south to Shishiya's betrayal, his final thunder. He dies the next winter, body vanishing into the earth by his own decree, no tomb, only legend. The survivors, perhaps 10,000, artisans and youths march in chains across the steppe, a human river feeding Mongolia's fires. Women like Zara's cousin, spared the leap, find new roles, weavers of Khan's banners, bearers of sons who will ride under foreign skies. Timur's line ends in the flood, but echoes linger in the tales of granddaughters, whispered around campfires. Power shifts like sand. Jalal ad-Din, the Shah's last son, rallies, exiles, harrying the flanks for a decade before the Indus claims him. The Ilkhans rise in Persia, grafting Mongol bone onto Persian flesh. Irony bites deep. The yasa, meant to bind, unravels in fratricide. The Silk Road, choked by fear, blooms anew under Pax Mongolica, spices flowing where blood once did. Gurganj's ghost rebuilds nearby as Gurganj, a shadow city, its foundations laced with unquiet dead. In the scorched earth of Khorasan, a lone apricot tree blooms defiant that spring, petals drifting over mass graves like forgotten prayers. Ogedei pauses there on his return, plucking one, crushing it in his fist. Juice stains his palm, sweet, fleeting. The machine rolls on, but the taste lingers. Centuries bury the delta under dunes, the Oxus shifting course like a guilty wanderer. Then, in the sweltering summer of 1920, a young archaeologist named Vasily Bartold kneels in the sands near Konye-Urgench, brush in hand, unearthing a shard of turquoise tile from a fallen minaret. Dust clings to his spectacles as he traces the script, a verse from the Quran, praising rivers that endure. Bartold, a Russian scholar with ink-stained fingers and a passion for lost voices, had come chasing whispers, chronicles, speaking of a city swallowed whole. His spade bites deeper, revealing layers. Charred beams from naphtha strikes, arrowheads twisted in the heat, a child's clay idol cracked but unbowed. Further digs in the 50 seconds uncover the citadel's bones, flood-scoured walls, mass pits holding hundreds, bones mingled without right. No royal finery, but a single earring, chased silver, lies curled in the earth like a secret kept. Modern eyes pierce the veil. In 2005, UNESCO names the site a World Heritage, drones mapping the ghost outline from above a labyrinth etched in satellite glow. Elena Petrova, a Turkmen archaeologist with calloused knees and a laugh like desert wind, leads the latest teams. They didn't vanish, she says over tea in a tent strung with lanterns, holding a fragment of bone etched with tally marks, Mongol accounting, cold as ever. Her work proves the flood's scars, silt layers thick with pottery shards, a testament to the deluge. Carbon dates align with the chronicles, 1221, the year of the leap. Petrova's fingers trace a woman's skull, graceful even in fragment. Zara, she names it in her notes, honoring the human amid the data. These finds, tiles, tools, the quiet weight of absence rebuild the narrative, bone by bone. No gold hoards, but truth. A city that chose ending over yielding. Why does Gurganj's shadow stretch to our hearths? Look to the screens flickering in war zones today, where cities fall not to horsemen, but drones precise, impersonal. The machine evolved, Aleppo's minarets topple like Gurganj's. Civilians choosing roofs over chains, leaps into history's arms. The system endures. Incentives for the obedient, erasure for the defiant. Power whispers the same lie that bodies are tallies, spirits expendable. Yet resistance cracks it still. A single earring defying the dune, a woman's choice echoing in Elena's tent. This teaches not despair, but the blade's other edge. Humanity's stubborn bloom amid the storm. Systems rise on fear, but fall to memory's quiet rebellion. In the delta's dry bed, life persists, reeds pushing through silt, roots deeper than rivers run. Return to that rampart, wind keening through cracks where hands once clasped. The horde has passed, tents folded like shed skins, the steppes swallowing their hoofprints. But the silences remain 60,000 echoes, woven into the wind's endless song. They were meant to vanish, threads snipped from the Khan's grand tapestry. But they didn't. Their defiance rides the Oxus still. In the bend of a reed, the curve of a shard, unearthed. Documents yellowed in Samarkand's libraries, bones guarded in Petrova's crates, memories etched in the chronicles that outlived the conquerors. And now they're here, with you because you chose to listen, to let their voices breach the quiet. If this shadow stirs something in you, drop a comment below. What system haunts your history? Your words keep the story breathing. Thank you for walking this delta with me.